When I started my Wim Hof Method journey, I was amazed how my body adapted to the cold through regular cold showers and the Wim Hof Method breathing. I wasn't getting sick anymore and my robustness to the cold increased dramatically. My journey continued and I wanted to test where my limits were and overcome them. So I chased records and challenges like colder water, more extended time of cold exposure, and getting rid of all my winter clothes. I believed that I had gained a superpower, but was it the real and only superpower that the Wim Hof Method would hold for me? After becoming a certified Wim Hof instructor and doing this method for over 6 years, I realized that I missed the subtleties of this method and what it could do for me. Or in other words, what the real superpower of the Wim Hof Method was to me. And to understand these subtleties, let me guide you through the stages I underwent on my journey. First, I had to learn the method. I was adapting the breathing exercise and cold showers into my everyday life. The online course of Wim Hof made it very easy for me to do this in a structured way where I could gradually improve. The tricky part, however, here is to overcome the first wave of resistance by sticking to the cold shower program and developing the discipline of doing it every day. Luckily, I was already familiar with working hard towards acquiring new skills. But for those who are not, here are some small tips to make the adaptation phase easier. Habit stacking. Know that integrating a new habit into your life disturbs your daily routine. You can mitigate that through something called habit stacking. This framework is pretty straightforward and follows the "when I do this, I will do that" structure. So find times where you can integrate the Wim Hof Method breathing and the cold showers where it integrates nicely with something else you're already doing. Use a calendar. You make a habit more binding by using a calendar and putting your practice in there at a specific time. Use a habit tracker. I found it helpful to track my successes when implementing a new habit. This added an element of gamification into the new habit because I would visually see my progress, never twice in a row. Everyone has times where life happens or has a downtime. We're all humans. But life is also about finding back to your path. That's where the rule "never fail twice" comes in place. So I wouldn't beat myself down over missing one day of practice, but I wouldn't allow myself to fail twice in a row. This gave me a good balance of discipline and room for failure as well. The next phase of my journey was the phase of overcoming my plateau. Life is no straight line. There are times when you don't see any progress or feel like falling back. For my practice, that could mean that I felt vulnerable exposing myself to the cold, or that I got shorter retention times when I did the Wim Hof Method breathing, or that I would get sick even though I was practicing regularly. My problem was that I kept doing the same thing over and over again after I finished my 10 weeks course. My way of practicing the Wim Hof Method was very specific. Breathing, cold exposure, repeat. No iteration, no changes, rigid practice. And also my desperate hunt for new records and challenges increased this fixed mindset. So what was the solution to my problem? Wim Hof has a quote that I haven't really been pondering on until I went to the Netherlands to take my first advanced course on my way to becoming a certified Wim Hof instructor. I know that sounds silly, but for the first time I saw other instructors doing the Wim Hof Method. And of course, everyone was doing it according to protocol, but still, every instructor had their nuances. Wim was Wim, but the other instructors were not. And there they had their own style, and it became clear that I had to change something as well. And so my journey began, where I learned to listen to myself. Listening to your body and your inner state isn't as easy as it sounds. It's not like the body just texts you how it feels. And it's also not as easy as just doing everything differently so that your practice doesn't resemble the Wim Hof Method at all. After all, these methods have been proven by many scientific studies, so there's no need to change everything randomly. But still, it's important to experiment and explore. But instead of doing it randomly, I show you a systematic approach of doing it. I want to emphasize that this process is my way of doing it, and certainly not the only way of deepening your practice. So I will give you an easy tool of how you can invite introspection and intention into your practice. We are no rocks. We have emotions. While it can be difficult to track the source of a particular emotional state, it's easier to acknowledge them. So a framework I like to use is to categorize my emotional state in 4 dimensions: high energy unpleasant, high energy pleasant, low energy unpleasant, and low energy pleasant. Being furious would be an example of the high energy unpleasant category, while discouraged or sad would be a low energy unpleasant state. Acknowledging my emotion in these categories would help me to set my intentions for the practice. For example, do I want to calm myself, or do I want to move into a more high energy state? Having an emotional map and an intention, I can adapt and experiment with my practice. As a personal example, I was always anxious and frustrated when doing the Wim Hof breathing exercises because my retention time was falling and I wouldn't get this out of the body experiences anymore. And this high energy, unpleasant feeling was building a lot of tension in my body. And the only way the only strategy that I had was to try even harder. And that meant stronger inhales, faster breathing rhythm, just like Wim does it. But I didn't realize that I actually added oil to the fire. So once I acknowledged my emotion, I could set smarter intentions. And I started to experiment with a slower breathing pace, a more relaxed exhale, and even a longer exhale. And also building up my session like a symphony. I would start very slow and gentle, and then slowly progressing to a storm with strong inhales and a fast-paced rhythm. So I was doing it more strategically. I was doing the whole session with a lot more intention of what I actually wanted to accomplish. I also spent more time cultivating breath awareness, body scans, and overall reflecting on my emotional states. The same principle also applied to my cold shower. Instead of hitting a new record or aiming for a specific time, I focused a lot more on my inner state, my inner emotional state. I took the time to really feel how my emotional state would be before, during, or after I took the cold shower. Before, my cold showers were always preceded by a breathing session to mentally prepare myself. And in a sense, it was kind of numbing my inner state or numbing myself to endure more or to take the cold prepared. With my new intention of introspection or self-reflection, I experimented with taking a cold shower or even an ice bath right after waking up. No mental preparation. I would surrender myself to my feelings, regardless of how unpleasant my body would react to the cold. It wasn't about records anymore. It was about acceptance. And with this shift in mindset, I reached a whole new level in calmness when exposing myself to the cold. And I also gained a bigger picture of the whole Wim Hof method. This new perspective opened a whole new universe to me, the real superpower of the Wim Hof method. Dr. Elia Crum showed in various studies that the mind plays a significant role in whether a specific practice benefits you or not. Believing that stressful situations or challenges actually makes you stronger has an effect on you. This was beautifully shown in a study where they took hotel room cleaners and divided them into two groups. Usually these people would get the activities equivalent to a healthy workout while doing their job. And one would assume that they would also get the health and mental benefits of an actual workout. But that was not so. So one group of these cleaners would get a thorough education on how their job would actually benefit their health and mental state, while the other group, the control group, just continued doing their job like before. And the result was really fascinating. The educated group showed improved health and mental metrics. They even reported weight loss, just like people who do the equivalent workout voluntarily. And the interesting thing is that the job itself didn't change. They were still doing the exactly same thing like before. The mindset just changed. They believed that the activities they were doing during the job benefited their health and mental state. That's all that changed, their perspective. The key takeaway is that there are countless of situations, of stressful situations, where we can choose how we react. And therefore steering our lives into more growth or not. And doing cold showers or ice baths regularly and voluntarily, I train my mind in two key features. One, moving towards what scares me, and consequently developing a habit of overcoming mental resistance, which, by the way, helps also with procrastination. And two, learning to stay calm in stressful situations and even draw joy from it, opening the possibility to a growth mindset. First, I thought that the real superpower of the Wim Hof method is to be a badass and shed off the extreme cold like it was nothing. And it is, in fact, a real superpower. But once you learn that it's about the strength of the mind and acceptance, you gain so much more. Imagine where you will be in life when you learn to overcome mental resistance and grow from every challenge in life. And also imagine how much deeper your relationships will be with yourself and others, when you learn to accept your emotions and guide them with intention. It's not about defeating the cold, nor is it about how long you can hold your breath or set a new record. It's about accepting the cold and every other challenge as an opportunity to grow, and use your breathing as a bridge to your inner self.